Yes.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I loved it. I love the
Hello.
intro.
Hello there.
Um, yes. So, share your mute.
Alrighty, so hi. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Alrighty, so I am a bit delayed. So hi everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. This is Cheyenne, the co-con chair for Geek Out in Staten Island. So I will be hosting this POC in comics primarily through In Beyond Con. So thank you all for coming today. So I'm just going to have quickly everybody introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Dennis Knight,
Uh,
following by Jasper Paris, and then Louise.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dennis Knight. I'm a comic book writer and editor. I've been active in the industry for about 8 years now, and I work closely with Pronto Comics.
Work. I'm Jasper. I pretty much have just read comics my entire life. And even though I have no business standpoint on this, I have a lot of like reading and lots of nerd time.
And I'm Larice. I have worked with and Beyond. I was in creation. I was in the works of creating a graphic novel based on a play that I wrote. And I used to teach a comic book club. And now I teach a media analysis club, which is basically a comic book club because that's the theme that I use for analysis of media at the after school that I work at. And I'm also a light worker, intuitive, all those things. You can find me at Bronx Starseed on all platforms.
Work.
Amazing, amazing. So, everyone, I have summoned you all today, basically, to pretty much have this conversation about POC in comics. And now we're actually going to start with the first question. I'm going to pretty much allow any of you to pretty much step in unless you want me to just cherry pick you, basically. And without further ado, we're going to start with the first question. So the first question will be, what POCs stand out and what are your favorites?
You mean as far as characters, or as far as like creators and writers and stuff?
As far as
All the
characters.
above.
Oh, characters. I would say definitely Black Panther is like my favorite.
Work.
I would say, and it's going to sound very generic, but who cares? Storm, because it was the first female superhero that I sort of saw on TV, and I was just like, wait, she's black. That's cool, and she's badass, and she has so much power. So I would say Storm, and then recently Shuri.
Period. um, I think my favorites that I could like, I mean, Static Shock, Virgil
Okay.
Hawkins. Um, I think if we're talking most currently, Miles Morales, because I can actually
Okay.
really relate to him as like he feels like a real person.
Agreed. Agreed.
Nice.
Storm because 90s X-Men, hello.
True.
She is the moment. And Halle Berry is also the moment.
Mhm.
That's probably about it. I know Black Panther is up there definitely now as well, and Shuri
Yeah.
for her Black Panther run that was in comics way earlier on.
Yeah.
As you spoke about
Yeah.
Halle Berry, I just thought of Catwoman, and I realized she's not a superhero; she's a supervillain. But she was also someone I looked up to because she played Catwoman and she was black. So it was like someone else who was a
Right.
prominent figure that was also a person of color. So
Yes, work. I loved her in that one, even though
me
people are like
too.
Yeah.
really miffed about it. I'm like, I don't
I don't
care.
get
She's
why.
everything.
I
Yeah.
don't get why were people upset about her being in that. I think she was wonderful.
It's because she's not Selena Kyle, and people were like, I wish she were Selena. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but remember, she was never intended to be white. Eartha Kitt, hello, 1960s.
True.
Exactly. Period.
That
Right.
is true. That is very true. Yeah. Yeah, brush those eyebrows basically. Because yeah, it's and I remember that particular Catwoman, she wasn't even Selena Kyle, so you kind of can't be mad about her not being Selena Kyle. And
Right.
again,
Exactly.
what Inexperience was saying was pretty much, Eartha Kitt. She
Hmm.
was Catwoman in the 1960s, so it's kind of hard to identify what her ethnicity actually is. Even though
Right.
in the 1990s animated series they made her white, they made her racially ambiguous. In the later adaptations, it's very difficult to identify Catwoman as a particular race. She's, I guess you can call her racially fluid in this
Okay.
case, but
But
people
also
are particular.
Serena is sorry.
No,
I
take her
keep
right ahead.
forgetting she's a little delayed. Sorry.
Oh, I think she was saying, what were you gonna say?
Me?
Yes,
I also
Larice.
feel like Serena is just a Latin name and Latinos come in all colors, so like, you know, just on a real basic level, like it's Serena.
Speak
Serena is her
on
name, okay? Serena.
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Speak on it. I mean,
Exactly.
she's
Exactly.
very. I feel like there are various points where I kind of remember her growing up, and I was a little bit confused because my mom was a big movie person. So I grew up on the movies, and then I went backwards. So like I was like some of the shows were out,
Same.
but it was mostly about the movies, and then like I remember reading my first like kind of Batman comic and being like, oh, Selena's her name is Selena Kyle, not Patience Phillips, and she's a white woman. Okay, we are learning. We are learning things
Hmm.
today. And the crazy part about it is too, I was so there was a Catwoman like I think movie adaptation comic that like was like less than three, maybe like 5 issues. I don't know. I just remember it being a thing, and I remember just being like, I should read this, but it was only five. It was only five issues or 6 issues or whatever long, so it was really short. One and two, it was technically a separate part of the universe, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess
Mhm.
whatever. I'll never get my Patience Phillips, but whatever.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I was digging the whole like shy artist girl into powerful woman, but regardless, I guess.
Hmm.
I also feel like,
Yeah.
we were talking about Serena's shine, but also Storm's shine, and I feel like there's a conversation about, and this is gonna get real deep real fast. Sorry, we're woke, but she's really from like Africa, if we really want to call it.
Right.
And so people are having issues with Storm consistently being represented by people of my hue, as opposed to someone who is darker. So I just wanted to like throw that in there, sort of like stirring the pot a little bit, but also bringing it up as this has been a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stir the
Colorism and
pot.
all that.
Stir the pot.
Yeah,
So
Stir it.
it's about
so how do
representation
you
for me,
feel
honestly. It's about representation.
so how do you feel about
It's
Cesar Romero?
dang, it's the delay. Hold on, I'll
Mm-hmm.
be right back. Let me just check my Wi-Fi as well.
I didn't hear what you were trying to say, Cheyenne.
So can you hear me still?
Yes.
Yes.
So how do you feel about Cesar Romero's Joker? Because he is also a person of color.
I really think people don't give him his shine or credit because he was constantly in makeup, so he looks white, but he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we get the other representations from other actors. Primarily, they were white. So it's like, well, the man who started it was a man of color, so we should give him his credit. That's just my opinion.
Right. And for those of you like tuning in, Cesar Romero played next to Eartha Kitt in the original Batman series on TV back in the 60s ish, with Adam West and everybody. So, those of you who don't know, Cesar Romero was the Joker, and he was a man of color. So, I feel like folks need to understand that. Also, the recent Joker was from the Bronx, which is telling, right? The recent Joker, we have him like being from the Bronx. That's
Right,
telling. Who's from the Bronx, right?
right. That's a good point.
Okay, so
I, I'm sorry, I was in the background getting my life because the facts, the Snapple facts. I, uh, I feel like the 1960s Batman was doing back then what we need to do now. This work, like
Yes.
they tried really hard in the 60s to try and make us more, like just appear, just be in the room.
Yeah, I agree.
Trying to
True.
make us a part of the conversation, and I was really here for it. Um, although I remember like reading articles like in the future about who was marketable and all this type of stuff, I didn't care. I was living.
ciao. The lies they told, the lies they tried to tell, because as soon as Black Panther came out, we proved that we were marketable. Okay, so
True.
Not even marketable, but that we would give our dollar. You vote with your
okay.
dollars, folks. You vote with your dollars.
Yeah.
And people
True.
saw that multiple times. They were in their dashikis and head
Yep.
wraps multiple times,
Period.
representing, okay,
The,
as we
the,
should.
the guys and the dolls were out.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But I feel like it's all beyond due. Black Lightning needs his due. Like Vixen needs her due. I always just felt this way in
Yeah.
general about characters, but especially about black actors that have participated in like the media industry. You always notice we always talk about Tara Strong. We don't talk about those other black voice actors that have consistently lent their hand, like to even as side characters or
Yeah.
whatever, just raising the bar, doing it up the correct way. The first woman that comes to mind was the girl who played number 5, whose name Cree
Cree
Summer.
Summer. Cree Summer. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yes, she's
She's like all over the
everything that
place.
Tara Strong is times 10.
True. Like she probably has more
And
credits too.
exactly. And Tara is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discrediting her. I'm just saying we don't give that same love to Cree Summer.
True.
She
Yeah.
was so many different iconic black characters and a transformer.
I mean, her resume
I,
is like down the block. It's crazy.
It's
I
so
think
cute.
if you know with Cree Summer, because saying that we don't give
Exactly.
credit to her is like, nah. Those who know, they really know. Like she
Yeah.
out here on MTV, on Cartoon Network, on Nickelodeon, on in the big movies. Like
Period. Period.
if you know with Cree Summer, she out
True.
here. You
Yeah,
know
man. In them
that
streets.
resume is she's in there. Yeah, she's amazing
Yeah,
too, and
man.
her energy is so cool.
Yeah, for real.
She's beautiful too.
Yeah. I love her curls.
Love it. We love that for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's like but like I said, just like a bunch of undeserved credits go along. Need to come back to the right people. Like,
Yeah.
but I do like going back. Like, if you guys can find 1960s Batman, because I'm not sure where to watch it for
True.
free. And if you guys
Maybe
can
Me
find it, watch
TV.
1960s. Hmm?
Me TV is like a streaming service that show like really old TV shows, like Incredible Hulk, stuff like that. They might have the Batman series on there.
Nice. So yeah, Me TV. Watch 1960s
Mm-hmm.
Batman. It's everything. It has all your favorite things about Batman and all your really favorite silly things about Batman too.
That's why I liked it though, because like I love the sound effects like pow, whack, and like you see like the big letters across the screen. It was great. I loved it.
It was so good. So good. And I get laughed at every time by older people who create comics for it.
That was like my first introduction to Batman, actually. So it
Right.
didn't even faze me that there was this whole issue of not being represented because we were represented.
Right.
And then like, so if this is my first image, right? If this is my first experience, right? I got a black Catwoman and then a Latino Joker, and it's
Hmm.
like, but then also if we want to get into the whole minutia of, oh, the people of color are always the villain, right? But the
Hmm.
villain always has a story. So just
Right.
having them be on TV, is it was telling, because I had never seen them not, like, I had never seen me, like, people that remind me of me not be on TV.
Right.
I was always able to find
Okay.
someone.
So
Ooh, that's a good one, actually. I got
Wait,
excited.
I didn't hear anything.
No, it's the
Oh, what
question. The
does
question's on the bottom.
what was representation mean to you in comics? Got it. I thought she said it out loud.
No, that's a really good question, though. Anybody want to take it on first, or
You were
Well, it was
speaking.
kind of where I was going already, where it's super important to see yourself on TV, you know? It's just is what it is. What representation is important. And when I don't see representation in comics, in the media, in these Marvel movies, there's an issue. There is a real issue, because it's saying this is what is acceptable. This is what is important. These faces are the only ones that are important enough to have a story, and I don't think that's fair. So that's part of the
okay.
reason why I created a graphic
Thank
novel. And
for the first.
Oh, Shay.
I heard
Yeah.
bits and pieces. I didn't hear the whole question.
yeah, Cheyenne, you're really, like, your connection. It's just it's throwing us off here. Sorry. But to continue, I created my own graphic novel just so that there would be representation of positive figures in comics that I felt were more modern and a little bit unique. There were cyborgs.
Ooh.
There's a child called the Divine Child.
Nice.
There's and everyone is a person of color, and then I made the shadow element in the play played by a white person. So the help and the dark element is played by a white person in the play. And he was a
I'm here
good
for it.
Me too.
yeah. He was a good sport about it. He loved it. He was like, "Yeah, you should make me those, because that's how black people are always represented, as the help, as the
Right.
person that's the shadow figure, or this dark entity, or the negative, or the villain." What I like about for example, Candyman just came out, right? What I like
Yeah.
about that is that he's quote unquote the villain, but he's really protecting his people. Like,
Hmm.
Right.
no, like, that's not really a spoiler, but yeah.
Right.
Sorry, spoiler, kind of.
Yeah.
Watch
I'll
Candyman.
let someone else speak.
Support people.
For me, it's important because like any of the part of the comic book audience is children. So you have like these young impressionable children. They want to look up to their heroes, and like I think it's important that the heroes look like them. Like when I do conventions, like a kid comes up to me, is like, "Oh wow, you make comics, that's so cool," because like you don't really see a lot of people of color actually in the industry making comics, writing, drawing, whatever the case may be. So to me, it's very, very important.
Um, I remember being young, and I remember like realizing that representation is a problem when I started realizing how much I watched Static Shock compared to even Batman the Animated Series when it was out, because they were both
Hmm.
running, but
Right,
it wasn't running new episodes. It was just the reruns.
right.
And I think that's when I started to understand without completely being able to vocalize that, like,
Hmm.
oh, there aren't kids or there aren't adults even that look like me with their own show. And this is what I find so much cooler and different, interesting. Because, full disclosure, I'm from the Bronx, and
Right,
Virgil Hawkins felt more akin to who I was, like, at least, well, felt more akin to who I know and who I can kind of see around me than like Bruce Wayne and
true.
Yeah, I hear
rich
you.
white
I hear
folk.
you. I also just want to mention, like, not only people of color in comics, but also women of color in comics. Like, I consider myself pretty well versed in comics and pop culture references, and I still have yet to be able to name 10 female women of color superheroes. Like I can't, like off the top of my head, I can't be like, but I can do that with other superheroes, you
Right.
know? And I just like, it still makes me a little uncomfortable because it just means that we haven't had that time yet, you know? And to the people who watched the Marvel movie Endgame, and you know, the all the women had their moment of shine
Mhm.
where they came up and they were like, all right, now the badass women come. There was a lot of like very like male fragility that came out on that, and they were just like, that was unnecessary, that was extra, that was like pointless. But I'm like, how come Thor and Captain America and Iron Man can have those superhero moments in
Right.
cinema, but then we can't?
Right.
I didn't understand that, and I felt like, you know, the backlash for that moment, that should have been a moment where I got chills when I watched
People should
that.
have been
But
excited. Yeah,
then
you're right.
you should have been excited to see all
Right.
these women superheroes being badasses on the screen, and instead your male fragility is showing and you're not supporting us. So
Right.
we can talk about, you know, women in superheroes, but like even there, like where were the women of color? You know, I saw Shuri and an Asian one. It's just like, that's it. Like where are we
Right.
really, you
Yeah.
Okay.
know?
As far as that goes, I always laugh because I grew up around like very strong women and stuff, so I was always just the type of person to kind of like watch a movie and be like, where are they? Where are the women? Where are the strong women?
Right.
So when that scene came up, I was excited. I was like, the girls are doing it for themselves. I was excited, and then I was just
Exactly.
like, this scene would have been. And then I went back and I was like, you know, the scene, what the scenes need, it needs just Storm,
Right.
just like more, please.
Yeah.
But like,
Exactly.
so like, and I agree with you, like,
Yeah.
wholeheartedly.
Hmm.
But I feel like hopefully the future will give way to more women of color too, because we have a Green Lantern that's like a bisexual black woman now. She's in the
Okay.
comics. Um, her name is like Sojourner, and she's like, she seems really cool. She seems really like she has a personality. I love that.
Okay.
And there's a lot of other kind of like black superheroes that have been made here and there, not just Miles Morales, but even like,
Work.
you know, different ones. And I always say the same thing, like I'm keeping up now more than ever because I want to know. Because I want to know
Work.
who
Yeah.
they
Sure.
are. I want to know what like I'm a writer too. I don't have any like books or any current projects, but I write too, and I do like heavy character analysis. So I'm like always
Yeah.
wondering, like, okay, are you a real black? Are you a real person? Or are you just a black person?
Right.
Mm.
Sure.
You know, like, do you have any other character traits than just whatever they need to give you to check off the diversity thing?
Work.
Well, that's the thing is like it needs to be genuine because like
Mhm.
especially with Marvel, I
Yes.
kind of want a job with them, but at the same time, it's like to have like this kind of like perfect example. Pride Month was what in June, right? So
Yes.
magically, they had these like Pride comic books, but they only came
Yes.
out in June.
Yes.
So where's the Pride the rest of the year? If you're gonna do it all the way.
This is how we feel about Black History Month. It's like,
Exactly.
It's Black History Month
that's
every night at my house.
There you go.
okay.
That's right. That's right.
Period.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely representation does truly matter in this situation because you got to see how a lot of kids were reacting to, Black Panther, for
Sure.
Yep.
example. Seeing
And
how
Miles
Shang
Morales.
Yeah.
exactly, Miles Morales as well. So
Ooh, I just
seeing
got
all the
chills.
Me too.
so seeing all those characters coming to light, and it's unfortunate that it's 2021 that
Yes.
we're getting more of these
Right.
characters.
Mm.
And yes, it's like we have more characters that are appearing, like the Green Lanterns are now showing now. So you have like Simon Baz, you have Jessica Cruz, who are two of a more newer Green Lanterns that are Afro Latina
Hmm.
and a Muslim black man, or a
Hmm.
Muslim
Right.
man, basically.
Hmm.
But you
Yeah.
also have Yara Flor, who is a successor of Wonder Woman, also.
Right.
So you kind of see that there are like little spurts here and
Right,
there of like more characters of color, but it's kind of like, can you don't give us a bone.
right,
Like throw a bone for us. Just give us a character, give us substance, give us
right.
everything.
Thank
That's
Exactly.
what
you.
we did
Thank
to
you.
Superman.
Say it again for people in the back.
As much as I like Batman and the Robins, I
Right,
as much as I like them and their complexity as characters, you need to give us more characters that are not only POC, but give us the love that you gave to Static Shock during the time
right.
for Static in the early 2000s.
Yeah, for sure.
Give us
Yeah.
all that love. But that
Yeah.
kind of gears us towards the next question, which is which character, if any, do you believe could be a better representation? And I'm actually going to start with Jasper for this question.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Because I already had one in mind. Um, my favorite character has been. I mean, it took 7 of them, but we finally got a Black Robin, Duke Thomas. For any of you who don't know, Duke
Okay.
Thomas is a human who his parents died, much like the other Robin. Um, and he basically is like just chilling out with Bruce and becomes a Robin, and then eventually becomes Signal, which is like he wears yellow and black, and he goes out in the daytime. So he
Right.
wakes up very early. Here's my gripe. I love the fact that they got a Robin that's black, but I really wanted it to be longer. His transition from Robin to Signal is like it's like a month in
It's instant.
airtime.
Yeah, it's very, very quick.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Duke as a character is one that I really like. He feels really complex. He feels like a person. It's not a bone. But I feel like his representation sometimes is like lackluster based on the fact of 2 things. One, they shafted him so quick to daytime Gotham, so we're never gonna see him again.
Right.
Like ever. Who's out there during the daytime?
Not the bad guys.
Not the bad guys.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
And then as far as like just him as a like I wanted to know so much more. Who is Duke? I felt like it was very just like, all right, we got 7 white Robins. We need one with diversity. What we gonna do? And then they were like Duke Thomas, and then they were like work. And
Yeah.
then
Mm.
I also don't
Mhm.
appreciate because I feel like this. I don't remember this clearly enough, but I feel like the dog in Bruce Wayne's Bat Dog is also Duke. His name is Duke, and I'm like,
What the hell? Right. I got you.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
totally.
so right.
I get you. Yeah, yeah.
So I just was really upset because I was really happy to have a Robin that looks like me. He's a dark skinned dude. He's a dark skinned young man. And I was really happy. And then I read the comic.
Right. It's a good big letdown. I hear you, man.
Yeah, but that's mine, Duke Thomas.
I feel like I want to answer this, but not answering it. And what I mean is, in as much as I want to sit here and bash the characters or creators or writers that have not represented us the way they should have, I want to give an example of exactly how we should be represented. And I want to say that's Miles Morales because when I sat in the theater and when I was teaching the comic to my comic book club kids, there were so many kids. And there was one kid in the theater and he looks up at his mom and he goes, "Mom, he has hair like me. I
Right.
like my hair." And like he's talking about his hair. And I'm like about to cry because us and our
Yeah,
hair
it's a
and the
big moment.
history.
Of
It's a
course, yeah.
big deal when a
Yeah.
little black or brown or Dominican or Spanish kid has these tiny ass curls and they're sitting here looking at someone who represents them and they love it. And the other thing was this was like a funny moment where we also have folks who are in sort of Spanish households where one parent perhaps speaks Spanish, but maybe Spanish is their second language, or maybe they speak Spanish, but they are taught English in the household, so the kids don't really learn Spanish. That was like my example where like my dad sort of knew Spanish, but he didn't speak it in the house.
Mhm.
And so I learned Spanish from my babysitter. That's a whole different story. But
Right.
there are so many
Mhm.
kids who don't really understand their parents, and they have to come with their report cards and translate them for their parents. They have to come with all the notes and translate them. They have to bring them to school and translate what the professor or principal is teaching them. And there's a quote, there's a panel in Spider-Man, and his mom is going off on him in Spanish, and he was like, "I understood none or some or like he said, I didn't understand any or some or all of that, something like that. And he's like, yeah, whatever you said, because I don't understand what you're saying, because you're talking a
Right.
language that I don't speak.
Mm.
And that is so clearly, like, that is definitely the
Facts.
culture. That is definitely
Mm-hmm.
the
Right.
culture. And it was not misrepresented at all. So I just want to
Mm-hmm.
give props where props are due, even before I start to even think about where we're going wrong. I want to highlight where we went right. And I feel like with Miles Morales and this brand new depiction of him,
Mm-hmm.
even down to the Jordans, even down to how he walked
Yes.
down the street,
Yes.
and even down
Right.
to hearing the like Dominican slang around him. It's just, that was everything to me. I'm not even Dominican, and I was like mad proud. You know what I mean? I was like, this is cool. This is really
Work.
cool. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to switch the question around a little bit, but my bad. You know?
No, it's great. It's a really good twist on the question because, a lot of us are quick to kind of focus on those specific characters that we know that we can nitpick at and to tear apart.
Mhm.
Right.
But,
Mhm.
to give credit, and I'm glad that you mentioned Miles Morales because I remember watching Into the Spider-Verse when they were doing the Spanglish. And to be honest with you, part of my family is from Central America. So the
Mhm.
fact that I am guilty of the Spanglish and the fact
Right.
that he was speaking, the way how he was talking, and just from his walk to his swag, I just said, wow, this is, I guess, this is a weird way for me to say, I feel great.
Mm-hmm.
you
Yes.
know, and for this one to be a dark skinned Spider Man with completely different powers, similar to Peter Parker that we know, but
Right.
different in a way that the character is just absolutely unique.
Yeah.
But Dennis, is there anything you want to say before we go into the next question? Since
No, they got all the good answers, so I'm good. I'll just go to the next question.
Aw.
okay. All right, awesome, awesome. So we're going to go to the next question, which is how do comics and adaptations perpetuate or deviate from the stereotypes that Black, Indigenous, POC, and marginalized groups?
Wow, that's a good one. I feel like I'm like in class or something.
Perpetuate.
Um, I'll take this one. I would say they do perpetuate to a certain extent, only to like kind of like highlight the problems that are going on in society. For example, would be Green Arrow, Green Lantern, the comic book back in like the early '70s, like Daniel O'Neill and Neil Adams. They tackled on a lot of psychosocial issues with people of color, like poverty, racism,
Mm,
stuff like that.
mm,
And like it's a stereotype, yes, but it's something that's actually happening. So they say, well, we need to talk about this, and they bring attention to it, which I appreciate because it's like, and also I would say Spawn, Tom McFarlane in the '90s, they really
Mm-hmm.
tackled people of color and homelessness, which that wasn't really
Mhm.
talked about in comic books either. So these like real life
yeah.
problems that people are going through, but these like creatives is actually bringing it to light and have forcing conversations about it, which is important.
That's
Mhm.
very true.
That's
Um,
true.
I told you about this comic, Shay, once, but there's a very old Superman comic where Lois Lane wants to do basically kind of like a journalism article on the African American community, so she becomes black. This
Okay.
is a real thing. You can look it up.
What?
This is a real thing. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, I believe you. That's crazy.
I
I'm
completely
sorry.
put that in the back of my head. Oh
But it
God.
was one of those. It's not DC's shining moment, and it's literally
At
her.
all.
No, it's her at first going to. First of all, the name of the town is like Little Africa to describe the community that they live. Yeah,
Whoa, buddy.
yeah. I'm probably DC's
Yeesh.
never gonna hire me, and
They did it to themselves, okay?
Yeah,
They
for
did it
real.
to
That's crazy.
themselves.
so let's start
That's
there. It's
wild.
Little Africa, and when she goes in, they don't want to talk to her because she's a white woman. And the time, I think it was like a '60s, '70s comic. So it was like,
Okay.
oh, we don't want to associate with you. We see what happens to black men and black women who talk to white women.
Right.
So they basically disregard her. She gets upset because they're like, and tells Clark, like, oh my God, like, I feel so bad. So then she goes, I don't really remember how the whole thing happened, but she turns herself black and she goes back to the community to try to learn something. Um and then Clark figures out that it's Lois and then kind of alludes to the fact that he might not be that attracted to her because she's a black woman now.
What?
Y'all.
Whew. Lord.
Y'all.
Jesus be offense.
And it was just
It was a
so,
different
it was
time.
so
It was a
bad.
different time. It was a different time.
Wow.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
And I just think that's one of those things. But okay, to relate it to something a little bit more recent, Bruce Wayne has every time Bruce Wayne has ever had a black woman in his life, she's always disappeared or died. Um, I'm bringing it all.
Yeah.
Spill that
And
tea,
I'm
sis.
just,
Like
I'm
what?
always curious why that is, because like it's not like there's a ton of black people in Gotham anyway, even though it's in New Jersey. So I don't know. It's very perpetuative for some of those examples because I just feel like either we're constantly watching someone fall in love with a black person and them just being shafted off to the side as often as they can, as much as they want, because like they can, or we're watching someone try to write a black character and then realizing this might not be the best and probably doing that sort of thing. Either we need to hire more black writers or um or we need to like figure out what the narrative is. I don't know, do some research.
That part.
I always feel like there's this the reason why the perpetuation happens often is because no one knows what they're talking about.
True, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with writing what you know, and having a bunch of white people from LA try to write about a black young man from the Bronx does not translate.
Right.
Oh, not at all.
Say
Right. No, I
that.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Like,
That.
Seriously.
Snatching edges. You're snatching
Nailed
edges.
it.
I'll get my hot comb.
Okay.
Nailed it.
My wig is gone. It's gone.
Oh, one quick thing, because I have to talk about this because we talked a lot about Black Panther. This has something kind of in relation to the last question, but it's going to be really quick. I saw two kids arguing about who wanted to be Black Panther, and it brought me straight back to my childhood when I used to fight with my friend who I've been friends with since I was 8 about which Power Ranger we were going to be. That's
Right.
what that means.
Right.
Like,
That's
if
a
you don't
big deal.
understand what that means, that's what
It's a
that
big
means.
deal.
We were arguing over 5 white and 1 racially ambiguous and like a black teenager.
Yeah. True.
We have Shuddy, we have Angela
off.
Bassett, we have
Go
Chadwick
off.
Boseman, we have Killmonger. This is the difference.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's all I'm gonna say on that. Go ahead.
Yep.
Okay. When I was little, I had Darkwing Duck, and I could only play Meg.
Mhm.
I'm telling my age.
Mhm.
No, sis, tell your story. Tell your story.
Yeah.
Please go right ahead. Tell it.
We
Mhm.
live, we love, we laugh.
Woo, you snatched my wig. I'm like,
Mhm.
oof. When you brought back that Superman comic, a part of me died because I'm like,
I'm still in shock.
I,
I'm like,
the
what?
way how Dennis and Louise were reacting was exactly how it's not more
I
animated.
can't hide my faces. Sorry.
Nah, me neither.
No, it's your reactions were exactly my reaction, and on the phone. So you can only imagine the faces and the noise, and obviously more profanity, because it was just like, what the hell am I
Exactly.
listening to? I cannot get my time back.
Imagine reading it, because I read it. I
Wow,
found it
yeah.
and I read it like it was so stupid.
And now there's no excuse because there was a whole 2020 riot. Like, if you didn't know black people were upset, now you fucking know. Sorry, now you know, kids show. If you didn't know we were upset, now you know. If you didn't know that we were going through these issues, now you know, and there's no excuse. You can't be like, oh, well, I didn't know. It's 2021. We had a whole uprising about this.
True.
Okay, damn near civil war about this. There's no excuse in 2021 anymore.
I agree.
I don't even want to give 2016 a pass. I don't even want to give 1975 a pass. But now you don't have a pass at all. Okay,
Yeah.
do
True.
better.
Do
For real.
better.
Not at all. It's definitely cringeworthy when you find yourself sitting there just like, ooh, this is bad, and you're aging bad. And we come to see that with some comics. So now we can go on to our next question, which is, how do we feel about switching of characters, ethnicities, or races? And I'm gonna mention
listen,
already.
we all jumping. We're all jumping. We ready. We
I
ready.
know we have. Go ahead, Dennis. Okay.
Nah, man, it's just like it's terrible. Because well, the whole thing is representation, right? So I'm an avid comic book reader, obviously, because that's my job. It's supposed to be. So there's so many iconic characters that have been like changed. Their race has been changed, like in the middle of a story arc or whatever. I'm just like, don't do that. Make an original character and make it the race that you need. Very simple.
And do your research. Like, why do we need the black version? We don't need the
Exactly.
black version. We
Right.
need our stories to be told. Hence
Right.
Black Panther. Okay. So when you talk about switching the characters' ethnicities, it's not. First of all, it's not even about switching their ethnicities. It's, if you're going to do that, what is the story that you're delivering?
Right.
So okay, you want to switch ethnicities. What's the story you're giving here, and what's the message you're sending?
Right.
Because a lot of the times it's not the right message, and it's not for the right reasons, and it's to show face, and it's not to show our story. It's to have a token, and we're not tokens here, and we can read through the lines. You can see clearly in between like, this is really to pander, and we not about that pandering life. Like, give us our story, or don't tell it.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell my kids, tell your story so someone else doesn't. Because if someone else tells your story, they're not going to tell it as good as you, and they're definitely not going to tell it right. So that's how I feel about switching ethnicities. You want to do it, what's the reason? But don't do it.
Yeah. Facts.
I have a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
Let's
He's
go.
ready. He's
Bring
ready.
the house down. Bring the house down, please.
You're already snatching wigs.
I'm ready for you.
I mean, to be quite frank with you, I think I would say that kids who were raised in the 90s definitely saw this a lot, where like you could like blink and someone switch ethnicities and you were like, what just, that was a magic trick, do it again. And stay white. And I hate the fact that we have to make Superman black because we have Icon. I hate that we have to make all these different people black because there's no representation. I hate that instead of having Martian Manhunter, who's definitely transformed into a black man, not the Snyder Cut is really great. Martian Manhunter, who's both been black, white, and Asian, but 9 times out of 10 in his early days was really black. He would identify as a black person, not be on the Justice League, and replaced by Cyborg. Not that Cyborg isn't good, but he was a Titan for so long. I feel like I don't have a good enough reason as a viewer, as a reader, as an audience member to say that Cyborg deserves to go to the Justice League.
Right.
Love him, I do. I'm happy that there's representation, but it felt like a check mark. So
yeah.
I don't care. But if we're talking about just switching ethnicities in general, I just hate it. I hate that this this whole idea, instead of focusing on making new stories or stories we haven't heard before. Icon and Rocket have not been heard from in a long time. They show up back in Young Justice. That was a perfect moment to make Michael B. Jordan, who pretty much looks like Icon, by the way, Icon and Rocket, who, if people don't know, is inspired by Wonder Woman. There you go. There you go. Just make the darn stories of the original, or just take characters we haven't seen. Vixen got a very small shine between 2011 and like 2016. Very small. She had one animated movie, a feature in like one of the CW shows, and then she's also in Injustice as a DLC character, which I hate. Shay, what were you saying? Ooh. Anyway. But yeah,
I was saying that she has her own animated movie.
Yeah, she has her own animated movie, and then like DC tried really hard to bring her forward because I think they saw the direction probably before we did, what Marvel was going for. So they were trying to like be ahead, I
Right.
think. And like it didn't work out because the love wasn't there at all. Like Vixen's a
Right.
great character. She's fun, she's funny.
Yeah.
She has the best storyline in Justice League Unlimited where she's cheating
Mm.
on John with
Talk
John
about it.
on Shaira.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
so great. That show does a better job at representation, honestly.
I
Justice
agree.
League Unlimited.
100%.
But switching characters, ethnicities, just make new characters,
True.
or bring the ones out of obscurity. When they
Right.
brought Vibe, to speak on the Hispanic community, but like when they brought Vibe back, he's always in the background, and I'm like
Right.
so confused because this
Mm.
is the only Hispanic character we actually know about from an older time and an
Right.
older age before Green. I think her name is Green Inferno, who's like Brazilian.
Mhm.
But there's no real Hispanic characters in anywhere. So
Right.
when I saw Vibe and I saw people trying to bring him back, I was like, oh, cool. And then he was in the CW show, and I was like, you
Right.
don't speak like you're not. Uh, I don't know. It's not for me, love.
Yeah.
But that's on that. So
Yeah, it's cringy. It's a
very.
Huh.
it's a definite cringe. And funny thing is, one of the examples I was thinking about was in the Ultimate Avengers, Nick Fury went from a white man to a black man.
Right.
And that's one thing I definitely could not forget because I remember reading that comic. And I'm thinking, wait, what happened? I remember him being
Right.
this salt and
Old white
pepper
man.
white man, middle-aged white man, for him to become black and basically Samuel Jackson. Because
Yep.
Mhm.
even before they did the whole MCU, I just kept thinking that looks like Samuel L. Jackson, and this is I don't know if this was like a premonition or just
Mhm.
something we were foreseeing into the future,
Right.
but I didn't know how to feel about it. It was just
Uh,
it was just like okay,
Right.
but there are other characters you can easily go from if you wanted, and it's again like if you wanted to. And it's just it comes to show that a lot of the writing is either pandering, it's either that little it's almost like a PC stunt
Afterthought.
Right. Exactly.
basically. It's like you're just doing like a performative stunt basically for
mhm.
Right.
us. And when you like basically revisit a lot of these older comics, you realize again that they don't age well. They
Right.
No.
really don't. And a lot of it is due to how they pretty much written us, like how they
Yeah.
written a lot of our characters. But then it comes to show that there's a lack of representation even within the comic book writing, the
Mhm.
storyboarding, and
Right.
everything else. So we have a couple more questions to go. So the next one is going to be when looking at Marvel's mutants and DC's metahumans slash Bang Baby groups, how do they represent our society?
Ooh. No, Jesse wants to go. I can see it. I can see it in his face. He's ready. He's ready.
We have this conversation with my comic book club kids all the time. All the time. We have the Professor X versus Magneto conversation where we
Right.
liken them to Martin Luther King versus
Malcolm
Malcolm
X.
X, and
Right.
we have the conversation of by all means necessary versus peaceful, whatever, you know what I mean. And I feel
Right.
like this conversation is important because I mean, first of all, when folks were talking about Stan Lee creating all these universes, uh it was very clear his intentions were not to shy away from these topics. It was very clear that I mean, first of all, he went to DeWitt Clinton in the Bronx. Like, let's talk
Word.
about it, okay?
That's where I went to
So,
school.
Period.
okay, period. Like, so we have um media representing us, representing the vital conversations that need to happen and the problems in our community and society. We have different avenues of going about fixing them. We have different leaders that rise up with different kinds of solutions to these problems. and they're all talked about. I feel like these are the moments and I grew up on the 90s X-Men cartoon. Those moments I thought were so poignant, and they still like they stay with me. Like I'm
Mhm.
stuck with every
Mhm.
episode that I've ever seen, you know? And I think it's because it was a good start. Now, some of these things that I've seen in these cartoons, if we watch it back, we're like, "Ooh, that was sexist. Ooh, that was this."
Right.
Okay, good. Right on, Storm. Thanks for saying that because that was weird.
Right.
So some of the moods are dated, but just having that platform to expose something, that's what Marvel does, and I feel like they have consistently evolved that. I want to say platform, but I guess they have evolved that platform. They have grown with the times or tried to, and I mean I'm not like praising them, like I'm not like worshiping
Mhm.
Marvel right now, but they've tried to evolve with the times. So I feel like they do represent society in many ways, but like we said, there's still room for growth because, for example, with the example that I gave earlier in Endgame, there was a woman group that stepped up into like
Mhm.
their shine, but
Mhm.
most of them were not people of color. So
Mhm.
Right.
we're making some steps, but I mean, what can we do, right? We're still in this country, in this society, and we're still people of color going through the same. What can we really do, really? Which is why I appreciated Candyman. Go see Candyman. Support our shit.
Period.
No, for real.
Directed by a Latina, produced
Period.
by Jordan Peele.
I'm excited for it.
That's all I gotta say.
Um, I've I think X-Men was the first thing that I watched, and like when I was a little bit older, and I was like, I need every comic right now,
Ever.
like
Yeah.
right now. X-Men, I don't. Okay, full disclosure, I'm not a huge fan of the Avengers or like a lot of the different types of like team ups in Marvel.
Okay.
Um, X-Men though. X-Men was that thing that I read and I was like, say that. I mean, I have a comic not so far from me that I was reading before I started this panel. And it's the
Hmm.
one, and it's a scene where Kitty is being ostracized for being a mutant, Kitty Pride. And she talks about it in relation to race in the first few panels with a black woman. And she actually says the N word to dictate the point. That's the difference. To dictate the
Right.
point. And she was beating up this guy and like full on, and then this black woman who runs her dance class stops her and said, Kitty, you need to relax. And she was just like, this is what he said. It was about Peter because he didn't know that he was a mutant, being a mutant lover. And then she that's when she says, what if it was a white man who said that your boyfriend who happened to be white was an N lover.
Right.
And then Kitty storms off. And then Peter's like, she didn't mean it that way, like whatever. And then the dance teacher goes, yeah, but she's
She's
right.
right.
Which is why
Mhm.
more black people should be in X-Men too. I mean,
Right.
but X-Men has always been my favorite. It's always been my favorite, favorite comic. And what it does lack in diversity, even amongst itself, it makes up for with the societal stories of diversity, if that makes sense.
It
Like
does.
I kind of wish there were more black people, but I think they kind of figured it could get like they probably could hammer it in better if using white people, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like
Mhm.
instead of using, I'm giving X-Men a headcanon that cannot be true. I'm just putting that out there before someone like quotes me. I know what the comic book community does. And
Oh yeah.
I feel like if I'm correct, I feel like my personal headcanon is that the intention for why the main characters are mostly white and not black is to get white people to get it. Because we get
Right.
it. No.
Mhm.
Right.
But if we see Scott and Jean ostracized, two people who are attractive, if you can say that. I don't find them attractive. That's just me though.
Okay.
If you look at someone like them who are kind of just dealing with their problems and issues, but are being ostracized, automatically people who are white can automatically look at this and go, "Oh, this is bad," like all
Right.
of a sudden light bulb moment. Um, as far as the Bang Babies are concerned, I'm a big fan of Static Shock the series, and Bang Babies was the first time I felt like the mutants was taken to the idea of DC, and
Right.
then actually did something really worthwhile with it. Because in the first episode, it talks about if Virgil is going to participate in gang culture. That's
Right.
the very
Mhm.
first episode. And for anyone who's lived in the Bronx or an urban area, I hate that. But if anyone's lived in those types of areas as a young man, you that's very real. That's a very real thing you face. Like if especially if you're bullied or whatever, people say stuff like they can protect you and you don't know what you signing up for. I never but I'm just saying things happen very quickly. And like to have that story be the very first episode and like automatically was like the best depiction. I was watching it recently and I was just like, this is great. This is everything that I wish X-Men was if it were placed in that sort of setting.
Right.
But like taken to that level where it needs to be taken to. How especially when it comes to like a later episode involving Richie's father and racism, because they allude to a lot of different types of topics, but the true racism conversation comes up with Richie's dad because he doesn't like Virgil because he's black and he wish he had other friends. But Richie lives in Detroit, so I'm a little confused on what the dad thought the demographic was going to
Right.
be.
Right.
Mhm.
But
Exactly.
I'm still think about that to this day. What you moved? It's like if a white person moved to the Bronx and then they found out that their kid had like a best friend who was black. Like, what did you think?
What do you think is gonna happen? Yeah, exactly.
What,
Right.
what was the reason?
What was the reason?
So I'm always confused by that episode specifically, but it's still a great conversation because it's Richie yelling back at his dad about the fact that he's not allowed to have friends because I guess Richie doesn't hang out with white kids. But overall, the conversation is great, and like I love Static Shock's Bang Babies. I love how all of them have had issues beforehand, and now they get the power to kind of take it back. Because the other thing that I love is that this was also a commentary on urban kids and community not receiving arts programs and therapy,
Right.
Mhm.
and it was a lot like he something I forget his name. Shoot, but he is just has anger issues, and then he gets a firepower. So now so now he feels more unstoppable. But if someone just took the kid aside, took him to a guidance counselor, not to say that would have fixed all his issues, but it would have been a start.
Right.
And there's a bunch of other characters in that universe, in Static's universe alone, that I could go on and on about who need therapy or just needed a friend or a moment. Um, but
I can
it's
say that about Batman. I can say that about
What?
Superman. Like,
Whole bunch of
Mhm.
people.
a whole bunch of people,
Bunch. All of them.
a whole lot of villains. But I do like the representation the Bang Babies give because even though it's a commentary in itself, it's a pretty gosh darn good commentary. And again, that just shows what happens when you have black writers in the room.
Right.
Mhm.
Nick King is in the room because she definitely helped with some of those episodes.
Yep.
Exactly.
But that's all I got to say on that.
Preach.
child, you said it all.
Said it all for real.
You spoke it in gospel. That's what
Yeah.
you basically did. You just preached. We heard you. We're praising you.
Right.
Basically.
Can we also talk about? Okay, so
Yes,
do y'all recognize this
Canary.
I just wanted to talk about Canary real quick. So Canary is also represented very well in Hunter x Hunter. There's no pandering. There's no
None.
exaggeration of features.
Nope.
There's none. And by the way, Rihanna, she's
She's
look up
smart.
Rihanna
She's smart,
Hunter.
right?
She's low key into
She's the
this
subversive
because
queen.
okay, let's look up Rihanna Hunter x Hunter. You'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, Canary comes through and she is this badass looking out for Killua the whole time. I need y'all to watch Hunter x Hunter just to stand Canary because this
Period.
is a good representation of a superhero or someone with more than human powers or abilities
Mhm.
that stands alone. She stands alone in her own right.
I'm just
And
gonna add to
doesn't,
that really, really
yeah,
quickly. Watch Hunter x Hunter in general because you want to see an anime that does different
period.
shades of blackness well, that does
Right.
different hairstyles and hair types. Watch
Mhm.
this 80s anime that is revamped for your
Mhm.
pleasure.
Yep.
And I want my royalty fees for
Mhm.
that commercial
Okay.
that I just did.
And it
Right.
comes with lube. Okay, let me stop.
Yeah.
Goes down smoothly.
Very smooth. What all of you were pretty much saying, especially with the amount of resources, as far as when you think about the Xavier Institute, think about the type of space that the mutants are basically given. You can
Right.
see that they're more well taken care of. They're in politics.
Hmm.
And that is something that you don't really see in Static Shock. But when you
Right.
look at it, it's suburbia versus
Right.
urban,
Yeah.
and you see the reality of how that the lack of care, and just say, like, like this whole explosion happened, the big bang happened, and you have all these dangerous man babies running around. When you think about that kind of conversation that they have about POC in urban areas, it pretty much shows how volatile the society is when it comes towards Detroit, or places
Hmm.
like or the places like the Bronx or Brooklyn or any of these other places that are pretty much urban but also disenfranchised. That's underlooked, not overlooked, underlooked
Right.
in a lot of instances. So yeah, this is a great conversation. I hope everyone is enjoying themselves right now, because guess what? We're going on to the next question.
All right.
Alrighty. So the next question is, what are
Thoughts
your
on
thoughts
DC
on
milestone?
DC's milestone? I'll let anybody start.
What are my thoughts on DC
Oh, this is from
Monster?
Eric Hutchins. This is from Eric Hutchison.
Hi,
Yes. Hi.
Hutch.
Hey, what's up, Eric?
Thanks for the question. I said that way mainly because I was just like, I have to think about this. What I feel about DC Monster? I it's okay. Like that's all I really feel about it. Like it's okay. And I think I mostly feel that way just because it feels like there should be I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say if there should be like more of something or less of something. I also haven't read that comic in like a couple days, so I probably need to reread it. That's the problem. That's why I was like, what do I feel on DC Milestone? Anybody else want to go?
Um, don't know. Like I've heard of it, but I haven't really like explored it yet. So I'm going to
Yes.
abstain from an opinion as of yet because I haven't really checked it out yet.
Larissa.
Milestone Media is a company best known for creating Milestone comics, which were published and distributed by DC Comics and the Static Shock cartoon series. It was founded in 1993 by a coalition of African American artists and writers consisting of Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, and Derek T. Dingle. I think it's a good representation of writers there because these are all writers of color, and that's exactly what I feel like we need in comics. Because, like we were saying this entire conversation, when there are no black writers in the room, that's where we have problems. There needs
Mhm.
to be black writers in the room.
Agreed.
Not only in the room but taking up space, not only taking up space but owning the table. Like,
Right.
this is what happens. Like, good quality comics come out of what happens when we are there, when we are present. And it also starts when we're young. Like, I give it up to my babies, my teens, who are actually sitting there listening and analyzing these comics, like, on a collegiate level. Sometimes it's crazy.
Right.
They don't even realize it. But this is what starts that spark where, oh, I could write for comics, I could do this, like,
Right.
whereas this isn't really given to us back in the day. Like, back in the day, I had no idea that I could write a comic book back in the day.
Right.
I would have started that sooner. So when we have people who are in the room that are a part of the community, that know what's up, that are doing the writing, that's when we have good quality content. That's how I feel about that. But
Okay.
I
Period.
just wanted to give that info for those who aren't familiar.
Say it twice.
Same, because I had no idea. Like, I knew of it, but I didn't know much.
Yeah,
So
DC Milestone made Static Shock, Icon, Hardware, etc.
yeah, so for you to kind of just give us that information is definitely good for the viewers. So those who want to check it out, go and
Mhm.
Go
look.
check it out.
Go
Yes.
check it out. You already
And
know that.
I feel like oh, sorry. You're
It's okay.
delayed, sorry. So I don't know when you stop. I'm sorry. I'm not interrupting, I swear.
No, good. Good.
I mean, all I was just gonna say was is that there's like this cavalcade of characters that I feel like a lot of people don't really know of, and I feel like
Mhm.
this is the biggest issue with this whole conversation.
Mhm.
Static icon hardware, haha. um, where it's like we have these cool characters, but like we don't have anyone who's writing about them or like doing
Right.
anything with them,
Put
Or
and
them in the
then
promoting
forefront.
them.
Right.
yeah, and it's just like it's so weird because they're made by black people. So all you need to do is take the characters, get black writers. I know it's a crazy concept. And put
Ta-da!
them in a room and let them do their
And let them
thing,
go to work. Real simple.
and then knock on the door like every like hour or something, and just check up on them. Don't give any direction. This is not you. This is not about you. Just
Yep.
let
Um
them go. Oh
All right. So
there's a zombie comic about Harriet Tubman. Is anybody familiar
I think it's
with this?
called Demon Slayer, Harry
Har-
Summon Demon Slayer.
yes, Harriet
Yeah, I've
Tubman's
heard of it.
Demon
It looks really,
Slayer.
really good.
I've heard
Yeah,
of it.
so this when we're talking about like promoting our stuff, when we're talking about promoting our writers, this is someone who like from the ground up created this comic. And I met them at Anime Con a few years back. Look up Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. It is a mess, a beautiful,
Yeah.
amazing, badass mess. And it's just one of those moments where you're like, yeah, we got our story, you know. So
Yeah.
just in talking about these writers, I know Marvel is something, I know DC is something, but we have people that are trying to push through and make themselves known. So I wanted to highlight that as well, that we do know folks that are doing their own. I was gonna write a graphic novel. We have Beyond who it like this is what the show is about, right? We have
Yeah.
people in our own backyard creating
Mm-hmm.
these things. So
Yep.
that's what's important, you know, here. The next question was what would be your advice for POCs trying to get into comics? First of all, join Imbion. All right, get with it. You know what I'm saying? Talk to Eric, talk to Lawrence, talk to Sebastian. You know what I'm saying? Like, get with it, because we like to help people. Imbion really does help folks get their dreams started. So those who want to get into comics, talk to people in the know, and those people are in the know and want to help. They're not here to take your money. They're not here to,
Right.
you know, just
mhm.
it's not
That
to
part.
break your back. Okay, is to
Right.
help you out and really represent us. And, you know, there are people that do exist that just want to serve and help. So I would say get in the know of and beyond. Go on our website and check it out, and see what services are available, that you can hire Beyond for. Um, it's legit stuff. It
Word.
works. We help people. Period. So
Yep.
Mhm.
I would say that starting there, like if you don't know where to go. But if you're trying to get into comics as a reader or as someone who's just like, oh, I'm kind of interested in comics, I would say just go with maybe something that interests you. You know, I know, but I can speak from an anime perspective. There is an anime for everything. There is a science anime. There's a volleyball anime. There's an
Yes.
anime where you go into someone's body and the biology of the body. Like there are characters. The cell is a character. The heart is a character. Like, so find what you like, and then go start off there.
That's where you want to go?
Sure.
Okay.
If you I was just waiting because I didn't know. I was just like, who's gonna go next? Uh, as far as my advice, very similar to what Larissa said. Find,
Larice.
huh?
Larice.
Larice, my bad.
It's okay.
Um, uh, find something you love, and like in your if it's like in media or your books or whatever, just find something that you really do love, find your niche and just really run with it. um Unbeknownst to me, I think what I figured out over the past like couple years is that I guess I really like social commentary. So all my favorite comics are like social commentary based, low-key. um, and I don't know if that has more to do with just like I always find myself having conversations with people that are about commentaries or whatever, or just that's just genuinely what I like. But I know I grew up in a black household where a lot of what we watched was like, and it wasn't very like traditional. Like I didn't watch like uh what's it called? I can't even name them. But I didn't watch. I watched nerd movies with my mom and dad. Like the thing that I always saw my dad watch that wasn't like a comic book movie was The Godfather. But
Okay.
my mom and my dad usually were like watching the original Incredible Hulk from like the 80s or 2003.
Hmm.
Um, they were watching movies of all sorts of different like stuff that had to do with nerd stuff. So for me, I would say if you like cartoons or you like the movies, the comics bring way more detail to
Mhm.
these stories and these
Right.
characters. Um, and then I guess one more thing: if you like a character, try to find their comic, because usually that's a great place to start as well. So if you're like really into X-Men, but you're specifically into Logan, you're fine. There are a million and one
Yeah. Right.
comics on Logan. Same Storm, a little bit harder to find, but she's there. She's there. I'm good though. Dennis, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah. I would say two aspects as a fan. I would say like go to the local comic book shop, check out the dollar bins. Just get
Yeah.
like a couple of dollar bin comics just to kind of get a sample, kind of like get a feel for what you like, what you don't like, the stuff that you really like. Then could continue on with like the other stories based on those characters. Also talk to your friends who are into comics because they might have a suggestion for you. Like,
I
hey,
was
check
just
out
gonna
this book.
say.
It was great. They'll give you a breakdown of their favorite characters, their favorite stories. You kind of like give you like a starting point. As a professional, I would say get into it, try it, network, meet with people who are actively doing it. Maybe could get attached to a project so you can learn from someone who's actually doing it. And Beyond is great. I know a lot of those guys. They've had me on their panels before. Podcasts. They're really, really knowledgeable, really down to earth, super friendly, and they will help you. Also, Comic Book School, Buddy Scalera, great organization. They do a lot of they have a lot of resources for people. And this Buddy Scalera, he's actually was in the business. He's worked for Marvel, was a magazine, so he has a wealth of knowledge, and he's super nice. Probably the nicest human being you ever meet in your life. Who else? No, the people are out there, and they are willing to help. So you just have to like kind of like keep your ear to the street, walk around, and go to cons, meet people.
Yes.
If you're artists, bring a portfolio to an artist. Maybe he'll check out your portfolio, give you some pointers. There are so many things that you can do to get out there. You're not going to get out there by sitting at home waiting for it to happen. It's not going to happen. So get out there and do it.
I wanted to also just
A word.
mention this is not a part of the question, but back to other people of color and women of color that didn't get their shine. Lawrence mentioned Nubia, Wonder Woman's sister. If we could get her to have her shine moment as
Okay,
well,
that'd be dope.
that would be so dope. I mean, this is what I'm talking about.
Right,
Basically, what you said, you were like, we have these characters and they're not represented. We have these characters and they're
Mhm.
not promoted. So
right.
I was just looking into the YouTube comments, and that one hit me because that was the story that I was interested in as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
Nubia.
question, Lawrence.
I love Nubia so much. Like so much. Just because in general too, like there's not a lot of stuff on her and like about her. It's really I don't think it's hard, but I don't think it's easy to find like stuff on Nubia. The most
Mm.
I could give is just sort of a basic intro is that she has a very similar backstory to Wonder Woman. She's created, but she used but Hippolyta used black clay. And Um, the rains from the heavens washed her off, and she became Nubia. And what I like about her the most is that I believe, like originally, much like to everyone else's thing when they meet Wonder Woman, is that she fought Nubia at first, and then they became sisters by the end of it, somewhat figuratively, somewhat also
Right.
both sisters because they're both technically created by Zeus and created by gods. Um,
Mhm.
it was DC's try to. I think it was honestly DC's moment trying to show that Wonder Woman was a intersectional feminist.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was really cool. It was what you call it. It's a really cool little thing that happens in DC. So if you find it, read it. It's good.
Mm.
It's fun.
All right. Is there any final thoughts that anyone would like to say before we conclude our panel?
Plug, plug, plug.
Yeah, remove the question so people can see our names.
Woo.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
I,
Right.
my only final thought is seek do your research, please. Seek out black authors, seek out black artists, seek out different types of people. um it sucks that we aren't promoted the same way um in as like some of our other counterparts. However, I think we also need to find ways to promote each other so that we can get the shine we deserve. And I've been learning a lot about that in my personal life, switching just like my little hair treatments and such. But also just like on a realistic like artist level, I am reading a lot more comics by like Takashi Coates, which I'm pretty sure I'm saying his name wrong, and I do apologize. But like I'm trying to read different comics by different artists and writers that come from me and by me, so I can feel good about it too. And I just really want to put that message and that word out there. Seek us out, love us so we can love ourselves, and hopefully we can get to the point where the others love us, but at least if we love us, that's a start.
There you go. We're
Bingo.
here. Okay.
Dennis, you want to go?
Yeah, hello. First of all, this panel was amazing. Good start to my day. Really happy to meet you guys and talk with you guys about these important concepts. My final thought is get out there, make your stories. The same way we're sitting here talking about it, you guys watching at home or around the world, you can make your stories too. So get out there, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar to Dennis, I created a story full of black characters in an Afrofuturistic setting before Black Panther came out, and then I was inspired to create a graphic novel after Black Panther came out after the play. It didn't go the way that I thought it would go, and I had to put a pause on the project, but I created a story. I had a concept. I had characters that I thought were important. I had moments that were special. I had a character called the divine child. There are things in our history. There are stories we could tell. We have horror. We have magic. We have brujeria. We have hoodoo. We have so many stories that are just going untold. We have so much in our community that's happening. I just encourage those who want to be creators
Mhm.
to just put it on paper. Just put it on paper, even if it doesn't go anywhere. Just put it on paper, and find ways that the people around you can bring it up and out of you. Because if you're around people that are not uplifting you, you're not going to do it. And I was around people that I was uplifting, and they didn't do it. So you got to really find your tribe. To do this. It's not an easy thing, but once you do, it's going to be so special because we're going to hear your story, not the story that people from LA or people from Arkansas or people from like Brazil are telling about New York City or the Bronx or Harlem.
Mhm.
Like you're not even from here, you don't even go here. Like
Mhm.
I don't want those stories anymore. So I encourage anyone that has a story to do their story. I'm Larice. I'm the Bronx Starseed. I'm a healer, an intuitive light worker, a Reiki practitioner. Hit me up if you need some healing, some meditations, things like that. I'm also an intuitive therapist. So if you got some stuff you need to talk about, I'm here. And lastly, I'm a dream interpreter. So if you have some recurrent dreams that are going through and that's the other thing too, use what you have. Those of you who dream vividly, Use your dreams for your stories. I'm not kidding you. They make the most interesting stories. So use that as inspiration. You can get inspiration from anywhere. And if you need help interpreting them or expanding them into stories, I'm here.
Not the
All
ancestors
right,
sending
hit
you a
me up.
word. Not the ancestors sending you a word to me.
Not okay. Not me preaching. Okay, not that. Not that.
We'll talk, girl.
That's
They
what
just
it's
got
all
me
about.
together.
That's what it's all about, you know?
Mhm.
Like this is real. We are real people right here. You know, we're not making money off of this. We're having a conversation about what's in our hearts. And I think that's what people really relate to. That's what people connect to, and that's where we
Right,
need to be. We need to be out
right,
there showing that.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes. So, Larice, Dennis, Jasper, my beloved people, and all the viewers that took the time to watch our panel, we'd like to thank everybody, especially and beyond, for allowing GhostyCon to host the panel. So, on that note, thank you, and I hope you all have a great day.
You too.